The story of the Lambton Worm. Yeah. When I say worm, I don't mean earthworm. This is a bit more scary than that. So the Lambton Worm is the kind of thing that the Witcher would go out there and kill. So come on. This is going to be a bit scary. This inspired Bram Stoker to write the story about the white worm. Long, long, long time ago, it was during the time of the Crusades. In the village of Lambton, the Lord's son, all the firstborn were called John Lambton, went out fishing on a Sunday. And of course, you know, and I know, and everybody knows that nothing good ever comes of anyone who goes out and does anything on a Sunday. There are stone circles that were created by people who danced on a Sunday. But the young Sir John ignored the advice of his old retainer, who said, "Do not fish on a Sunday." So the morning passed, and John hadn't caught anything. Now all the fishermen are going to be sitting there nodding in agreement. Yeah. And what he caught was a little white worm, little white wiggly worm with 9 holes down the side of it. And he was very intrigued by this strange white worm, and he took it home with him and dropped it down the well. I don't know why, but he dropped it down the well. And there the worm grew, and the worm grew, and the worm grew until it became a great white snake. And it came up out of the well and would eat a sheep or a cow. And sometimes, if a cottage window had been left open, the worm would climb in at night through the cottage window and would take a small child, because the worm found that children, although they could be a bit crunchy, and sometimes perhaps he got a bit of indigestion afterwards, but human children were actually quite tasty. And unlike sheep, they didn't have that annoying fur that he had to spit out afterwards. So there came a time when the young Sir John Lambton went off to the Holy Land, went off to the Crusades in search of adventure, and probably hoping to make his fortune. And when he came back, and of course this is some years, he found his estate had fallen to rack and ruin because the worm had eaten so many sheep and so many cows, had wreaked havoc on the estate. So Sir John went to a wise woman. Now the story says a wise woman. Now you know, because you're clever, you know and I know that a wise woman is a witch. He went to the village wise woman and said, "How do I kill the worm?" Now the problem with the worm was that if you cut it in half, the two ends would simply join together and heal, and the worm would heal itself. The wise woman said, "Take your armour, take the armour that you wore in the Crusades and cover it in spikes. presumably he had a helpful blacksmith to do this for him. Blacksmith? Armourer? Anyway, so he took his armour and covered it in spikes. And the wise woman said, "Fight the worm in the river from which you caught it as a little, tiny little worm. And when you have killed the worm, whatever it is, whatever the first thing is that you see after you have killed the worm, kill that, for that is a sacrifice in exchange for the life of the worm. If you kill the first thing you see, all will be well. If you do not, if you fail to do this, a curse will fall on your family, and for the next 9 generations, all the lords of Lambton will meet a violent end." So, Sir John Lambton went to his armourer and had made spikes to fit on his armour. He went down to the river with his great sword, his great 2-handed battle sword that he had used in the Crusades, and he fought the worm. So you'll just have to try and picture the kind of Steven Spielberg type effects that go with this, and you'll just have to picture the sound of the water and yeah. I'm a storyteller. I expect you to fill in the pictures, right? So there he is. There's John Lambton standing in the river, and there's the worm, and they're fighting each other, and he's got his sword, and there's lots of. So can you can picture this? Yeah. I don't know what sort of sound a worm makes as you kill it. Do you have any ideas? I suspect it would be quite loud though. So John killed the worm. And he remembered the next piece of the wise woman's advice. And he had told his father what the wise woman had said. He had told his father to send his hunting hound down to the river, so that once he had slain the worm, he would kill his own hunting hound as a sacrifice. But the old man, the old Sir John, forgot the advice that the wise woman had given them. And so the first living creature that the young Sir John saw after he had killed the Lambton Worm was not his hunting hound. It was his own dear father. And of course, he couldn't bring himself to kill his father. So a curse fell on the Lambton family. And for the next 9 generations, every Lord Lambton met a violent end. It is said that the 9th person, the 9th Lord Lambton to die as a result of the curse, was in 1736. He had an accident in his carriage, apparently. And it was only after that that the Lords of Lambton began to die peacefully in their own beds, as I hope shall all of you. So there you are, the story of the Lambton Worm. Because there were worms and dragons and giants and fairies in England, even though some people will tell you that there weren't. But we all know that there were, and stone circles, and woodlands and forests full of strange, mystical beings and strange characters. So, if you would like to hear any more stories about the strange things, the dragons, the worms, and all sorts of other strange things, do subscribe to my channel and do check out some of my other stories. And do have a go at telling some of them yourselves. And if you go fishing, try and catch fish, not yeah.